us. If you're just seeing us for the first time, my name is Brett Rademacher, and with me I have Harold Smith. He's the author of the articles on HeThatHathAnEar.com. And each week we do a discussion and we delve into a few of the more salient points in the articles in order to help make it more interesting and maybe add some insight. But we do remind everybody each week, do not go by just the videos. Please read the article. There's many points we don't cover. There's links to Bible verses. There's links to word definitions. There's links to other articles that interrelate within the context of the discussion or the information in the article. And then also from time to time, there's links to external content that just helps expound on what Harold's writing about. Now, we're in the middle of a series, the Name series. This is Article 2, Protection in His Name. It's a fantastic article, and I liked it a lot. A lot of good stuff here. And so, Harold, what would you like to say before we get going?
It is amazing to me. For the longest time, I have, when people would ask me about whether or not we can expect to be protected by God, I have dissuaded people from that particular subject, because I've never found anything in Scripture that would point to his. I would tell people that we're not guaranteed health, wealth, prosperity, all of that stuff, and that Yeshua said that it rains on the just and the unjust. Circumstances abound, to which we are just by being in the world, we are susceptible to. And then, quite by accident, just this past week, I have read Psalm 91. I don't know how many times. It's one of my favorite Psalms. I put it in my pocket and carry it around. But I have never seen this passage that says, because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him, because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. That's Psalm 91, 14 through 16.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that verse.
Well, I went back and looked at the Hebrew word, translated as the English phrase protect, or in most modern Bibles it shows up as set him on high. And that phrase, set him on high, is one word. It's sagav, which actually means to be too high for capture. Hence, to be safe, to defend, to protect. And it blew me away. It just, sometimes the Father just blows me away and with these words, and this is one of them. And I had to first apologize to him for not representing him truthfully, and secondly, to really embrace this. I mean, now there's a caveat to him protecting us, which is we must know his name. And as I began searching, I saw that there are many places in Scripture where he talks about how to love him. And I just, all of a sudden, in this article, that I've written, it was already had a good body of content labeled the glory in his name. But I've had to adjust it, because this idea of him protecting us, it's because of his glory that we are protected, because we know his name, and his name is his glory. Does that make sense?
Well, when you say his name is his glory, you go into that in a little bit more detail in the article, but why don't you expound on that a little bit?
My question was, okay, so how do we, if we want to be in his protection, how do we do that? And he says that it's those that know his name. So how do we know his name? How do we know, how do we come to know this Elohim of Israel? How do we come to know his name? We come to know him the same way Abraham came to know him 430 years before his name was proclaimed at Sinai. You can find that in Genesis 26:5. It's the same way Moses came to know him before going up on Mount Sinai, and you can find that in Exodus 18. And it's because they spent a lot of time with him. They really got to know his essence, his nature, just by spending time with him. And when Moses in Exodus 33:18, he asked Yahweh to show me your glory. And he did. In verse 19, it says, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of Yahweh before you. And here's where we see the name of Yahweh is his glory. He equates his glory to his name. And so they're interchangeable. We've spoken in other articles how names and words in Hebrew often have a duality of meaning. And here is one of them. Because when you say the Yahweh, you're saying his glory, and his glory is his goodness. It's Yeshua. We're told in Acts 10:38 that Yeshua went around doing good. He was manifesting Yahweh's glory in this earthly realm.
I got a quick question, Harold. Now, because there's no vowels in Yahweh or Jehovah, how do you know which way's correct? Because we hear both pronunciations. Is it?
I'm not going to get into a debate about how to pronounce a Hebrew name using English letters.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't matter.
Well, then let me rephrase the question, because it really wasn't a debate. It was, just like how did you personally pick one translation of it, or pronunciation of it over the other? What was your thought process there?
When I was in Israel, I met a Hebrew linguist, a woman who had spent her life she was a natural born Israeli, and she had spent her life involved in the Hebrew language, parsing it out, if you would. And This is what she told me. She said Yahovah is made up of the consonants Yod, He, Vav, He, which lend themselves to the reading of Yahovah.
Gotcha.
And means Yah is the present presence, just as Hove is derived from the verb to be, which means being in the present or continuous, as well as the present. Thus, he is the one present who is constantly being, hence the present presence. But, as if this is not enough, Yah is another derivation of the verb to be, but missing the first consonant. In Hebrew, a verb is the part that indicates time. In the case of the verb to be, it would be past, haye. Present, as we have seen, hove, V and Y are interchangeable in Hebrew, and future, Iheya. Thus, the Yod, Heya, speak of who he is outside of time. Here we also have a double witness, which Scripture requires in Numbers 35:30 and Genesis 2:7, in both Yah and Hove of his eternal being, Yahovah. Additionally, verbs in Hebrews don't stand alone. For every verb, there is usually one or more compatible brother verbs sounding similar with augmented meanings and sometimes opposite in meaning. Such relationship can be seen, for example, in KVR, to bury, and KFR, to cover. In this case, HVH, to be, may be coupled with CHVH. CH is in the Scottish lach, which is the root for to live. So altogether, Yahovah may be understood as the eternal one who is the living present presence, or something like that. And that's courtesy of Ramona Frank.
Okay.
And she's still living in Israel with her husband, and they're some dear friends of mine. But that is where, and I'm not the only one. There have been other scholars, Nehemiah Gordon for one, who have come to this same pronunciation. Tim Hegg.
Now back in time, the Israelites coming out of in the desert, they were very familiar with what the pronunciation would be, correct?
That's correct. It wasn't until the mid-600s BC, that's, CE, before the Common Era. That's after the resurrection, 600 years, that the Masoretes came and became the keepers of the Hebrew scrolls and interpretation, and they were the ones. Their religious sect felt that the name Yahovah was too sacred to pronounce, and so they just inserted in the Hebrew writings the name. That's where that that pronunciation, Hashem.
So they did that arbitrarily. They just figured that was something that should not be used by the common folk. Was that
their sect was very restrictive in that regard. They just considered his name to be too sacred to pronounce, and to make sure that nobody had the opportunity to mispronounce it or miswrite it or anything. They just inserted Hashem wherever you saw his name in those scriptures, which is why when the Greeks came along, well, the Greeks had already come along, but when the Latins came along to make their arbitrary changes, that kind of carried over in the way that they translated the script. And of course, then by the time you get into the English translations with Tyndale and the King James version, you're getting into more layers of religious etiquette that kept getting.
Now, one of the things that you touch base on in this article is that, this God of Israel is significantly different than this God, you call it institutional God of the late Holy Roman Empire, which ultimately has become the Roman Catholic God and has ported itself over to Protestantism, which
we covered that pretty extensively in the last article. What's in the name? The name Yahweh appears over 6,500 times in Scripture, in the Hebrew Scriptures. Not once, not one time is it ever written in any of our modern translations. And that's due to the fact that when the Roman Emperor Constantine was looking for a religion that would solidify the Roman Empire, all of these desperate places that they had conquered, he was trying to bring them into a place of unification as far as religion is concerned. And this new, there were many of the Hebrew faith that were not ethnic Hebrews. They had come along and joined into the Hebrew faith following the Messiah, but the Roman Empire was horrifically persecuting Hebrews across the board. And they began to petition the Roman Empire saying, "Oh, we're not actually Hebrew. We've just kind of been, straggling along here, and can we get some relief?" And so Constantine began to look at this ragtag religion that hadn't really formulated yet. It was beginning to, the term Christian was first used as a derogatory word to call these Hebrews, and it's kind of like the same way that the term Jew was first a derogatory word that was used because the Romans used it when they had conquered Jerusalem, and most of the Hebrews that were in Jerusalem were of the tribe of Judah, and so they were being derogatory, called them Jews. And after a few centuries, it stuck, and the rabbis said, "Well, we'll just make it part of our deal." And in the same way, we have this term Christians. They didn't start off calling themselves Christians, but because of this persecution, they had begun to drift away from the Hebrew etiquette and had pretty much put themselves in a little different position, enough so that it caught Constantine's attention, and he said, "Okay, let's use this new thing called Christianity as the religion for Rome, but we're gonna make sure that there's no Hebrews attached to it." And there are some pretty stringent edicts that he set down to completely separate that thing from any Hebraic nuance, period. And it became the Latin religion of Rome. This is why the Catholic Church, for so many centuries, the only way that they would conduct services was in Latin, because it was the religion of Rome. They don't call it the Holy, the Roman Catholic Church for nothing. Catholic means universal, but it had its roots based in Rome. And whenever Martin Luther, he got dissatisfied with 95 things that the Roman Catholics were doing, and he nailed those theses to the door of the Catholic Church, and he split. And those 95 he changed, but he took everything else with him and incorporated it into this new Protestant movement. That's why I call them Protestant Catholics. They don't like me very much for that, but it's true. If you go, it's the reason Sunday is the the Sabbath day for Catholics and for Protestants. It began with the Catholics. They changed it from Saturday to Sunday, and the Protestants took it with them when they left. And if you look at this tree called Christianity, you can start at any branch you want to, and follow its trail, where it splits off from this one and splits off from that one and everything, and you get back to the root. It is all rooted in Roman Catholicism. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a number of things here that were quite interesting. We're going to ping pong around because some of these probably will take a little bit to chat about. So you have this paragraph. It says the English word glory used in Exodus 33:18 is translated from the Hebrew word, is it kavod?
Kavod,
Kavod, which has its origination in a similar word, kavad, meaning to be heavy or weighty, to be honorable or glorious. Since the weight of this splendor comes from being in the presence of his glory, all anyone can do is bow down, to bend the knee at the majesty of his excellence. And thus it becomes an acknowledgement of the nobility of his essence. And you said something here that really caught my attention. It says, this is what happened immediately with, this is what immediately happened with Moses after Yahweh passed. Yahweh. See, I'm saying it different now because of what you said. I'd say normally say Jehovah. Yahweh. I would say Jehovah. Normally.
Jehovah.
Yeah, Jehovah. Yahweh. See, I got you messed up now. This is what immediately happened with Moses after Yahweh passed before him. He bowed down and worshiped this glory. He could not help himself. So weighty was the radiance, the brilliance of his presence. The same thing happened when his presence filled the tabernacle. The congregation had to bow down from the weight of the magnificence of what was before them. So let me ask you a question. So you're saying they could physically feel the presence to where they felt the pressure, the weight?
I have pushed me to the ground.
Yes. I've had 2 times for sure that I remember. And so, I'd never seen somebody write about that scripturally, but both
there's a scripture, it escapes me at the moment, but there's a scripture in Exodus where it says that Moses and the congregation could not enter the temple because of his glory that was so brilliant.
Yeah. And I could say, having felt the weight of his presence one time was so heavy, it took me to the ground. And not only could I not get up, it kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier until I had to ask for it to stop. It was just getting, I mean, I was literally being crushed under it, not in a painful way, but I could feel the intensity of the pressure, of the pressure, of the pressure. And
I didn't want to get up.
I was blown away. Well, there was another time in a worship setting where I didn't. In this case, this time was different. This one was much more intense, and both were unique situations that, you know, I didn't really ascribe to being a particular type of thing that Scripture talked about. It was just an experience I had. But when I was reading this, I was like going, wow, okay, that's exactly it right there. So Scripture validation of an experience that I had at least 2 times. I think I had it a third, but 2 I know for sure.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. And people have asked me also, is Yahovah a person like us? It says in this passage in Exodus, actually in the subsequent chapter in chapter 34, it says that when Yahovah passed before Moses, he put him in the cleft of a rock, because if he were to see his brilliance, if he were to be exposed to the whole of his brilliance, it would consume him.
And I'm assuming consuming meant destroy him?
It would completely burn him up. He's a consuming fire. That, you know, people consider light to be kind of innocuous. You know, it's just kind of there, and it helps us see. But when you get into the properties of light,
like for example, the sun, right?
Well, let's just put it in terms we can understand. When you take light and bring it down to its basic element, it becomes a laser, and a laser will burn through anything.
A light, a magnifying glass, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, and so the Scripture says that when Yahovah passed before Moses, he saw his back. Now, if he's got a back, just stands to reason he's got a front.
Yeah.
And if he's got a front, and the DNA of the father was passed to Adam, and so Adam became like the father. And if Adam has a face and a front, you know, the father has a face and a front. Just the same way my DNA is passed to my son, he's got a face and a front. A nice looking face, by the way. You know, he gets his pretty from his daddy, in the same way Adam, you know, got his pretty from his father. So it to me, when I look at these words, these various words in Scripture, and just kind of put them, you know, gather them all together, it paints a very clear picture of who this guy is. And it says that we have the opportunity to come to know him. And to me, knowing the creator of the universe would seem to be the most important function that we have, that surpasses everything. And the opportunity to become as he is here on this earth just boggles my mind. Why wouldn't we spend every waking moment pursuing that objective? It floors me when I run across people that just aren't interested. They'd rather sit in the pew and let somebody say some religious words over them so they could feel good for a few minutes, then go back to doing whatever they were doing, pursuing wealth or material items or people or whatever they're doing. And for me, it's an all-consuming fire that's in my belly.
What was really interesting is you then segue into this part where you talk about the liver.
As said before, in Hebrew, words have dualities of meaning. It's quite common in the Hebrew language, and here's one of them. This Hebrew word kavod comes out of a root Hebrew word kavad, and the word kavad, meaning heavy or weighty, to be honorable or glorious, is also the Hebrew word which means liver, the organ of the liver that we have in our body. The liver is the heaviest organ in the body. And it's the only organ that we have that has the ability to replicate itself, to be able to regenerate itself. And the function of the liver in the body is to cleanse the blood. So when we receive this spirit of Yahweh, it's not the Holy Spirit, some other entity. We receive the spirit of Yahweh in our beings, and when we do, that spirit settles in our liver, and the liver cleanses our blood.
Wait. That's the part that, I really highlighted here is, how do you know this spirit is settling in our liver?
That's what the name means, liver. Kavod means, or rather kavad means liver. It means glorious. It's the glory that's being spoken of Yahweh. And it also means the liver in the human anatomy. They're the same. They can't be, you can't separate them. When you say one, you say the other. The same with Yahweh. When you say his glory is goodness, goodness is his glory. They're inseparable. You can't separate them in the Hebrew language, and it's the same here. Kavod means it's where the glory of Yahweh settles within us, and it settles within us because it's a blood cleanser. That's what the function of the liver is, and it cleanses our blood.
So what you're saying is literally the spirit being in us is a physical cleanser of our blood.
I'm not saying it. That's what these words say.
Right. Okay. But that's what you're saying they say.
I'm just reporting on the research that I found. So
that's a pretty profound concept.
Oh, and I have an article, the couple of articles in this series down, in this series. It's called The Power in His Name. I can prove it.
Prove what?
Huh?
Prove what?
That it settles in your liver scientifically.
Okay, so we'll get into that when we read that article.
Yeah.
So that's a powerful concept. What are the implications of that being so when we talk from this cleansing our blood concept, what does that really entail? What does that mean in practical terms?
When we consider that Yahweh is the Word, I have another series of articles we'll be going through that confirms that. Okay.
Lots of articles.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of information, you know.
Yes, it is.
When you're writing these articles, you first have to consider how you're going to present it so you don't just completely blow people away so they don't read it. You know, you got to make it interesting enough and short enough, and these things are too long already. But but you have to try to consolidate them into something that, you know, it will engage people all the way through. And there's a series of articles called The Word, and it shows that Yeshua is not the Word. Yahovah is, and it shows it from Scripture. It shows that Yeshua, the title, the Word, is never ascribed to Yeshua anywhere in Scripture, but it is ascribed to Yahovah. And so, in the same way that Yahovah is, I was going to make a point here. In the same way, Yahovah is the Word. When we speak about His 10 words, we are speaking of Him. We are speaking about the essence of who He is. And so when we speak about the liver cleansing the blood, that is the purpose of His Word. Yeshua said in John 15:3, "You are already made pure or clean." They're interchangeable English words. By the word that I've spoken to you. And he says in John 14, verse 24, "And the word that I speak is not mine, it's my Father's." So it's the word and He is the word that makes us clean. How does He do that? He settles in our liver and He regenerates our blood. We literally become Yeshua in this world. We become, all of this is happening through our embrace of His words in the life of Yeshua. And as we embrace that life into our lives and begin to manifest the same glory that He manifested in John 17:4-5, He says, "Father, I finished the work that You've given me because I have manifested Your glory to these 12 that You've given me." And He's saying to us, and He says, "And I pray that they become unified in You," Echad, which is Hebrew for one, but it also means unity. "I pray they become unified in You in the same way, in like fashion, in similar manner, that I am Echad with You." And then he goes on down in verse 20 and 21, and he says, "And not only do I pray for these 12, but I pray for anybody who would believe through their words, that they become Echad, unified with You, just as, in similar fashion, in like manner, I am Echad with You." We have the opportunity to become as Yeshua, as Yahovah in this world. And that comes from 1 John 4:13. By this know we love, that even as He laid down His life for us, we should also in like fashion lay down our lives for the brethren, not the world, but the other brothers in the kingdom. I mean, it makes it very clear from the scriptures that I'm seeing that we are to manifest who He is in this world, and the way that we're able to do it is we become like Him. And the way that we can move under His protection, be placed on a place high enough that we can't be captured by anything, is to keep His words. Because He says very specifically in Exodus 20, verses 5 and 6, He says, "You shall not worship or serve any other gods, for I, Yahovah, your Elohim," which is a generic Hebrew word for God, "am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate Me." And the Hebrew word for hate is sane, S-A-N-E, which means to disparage, to have both in the Greek and the Hebrew, it's this, the hatred found in Scripture is behaviorally through acts of hostility, disparagement, and aversion. And to despise something means having nothing to do with it. You separate yourself from it.
Right.
And so he says, of those who hate me, going back to Exodus 25:6, but showing steadfast love to 1,000 of those who love me, to keep my commandments. Now, in most modern translations, it doesn't have the word to in there. It has the word and. But if you go back into the original Greek, you'll find that it means to keep, to hold fast to. 2,000 of those who love me by keeping my commandments. That's how we love him. And Yeshua, in John 15:10, he reinforces this. He says, if you keep my commandments, my words, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's words and abide in his love. That's how we love him. We keep his words. And if we keep his words, we can expect to be found under his protection. Because
and you say, as we embrace and appropriate the virtue of his life as our own, the blood of his literally begins to course through our veins to make us clean, and we are regenerated. And you reference John 15:3 and Romans 8:11.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It was to me when I first ran across it. It is a mind blower. But all it's saying to me is this walk we have in him is very tangible. It's not just some mystical, ethereal place out here, maybe over there someday, anyway, anywhere we might. It has nothing to do with any of that. It is real. It is tangible. And we can expect to walk the way Yeshua walked. Now, there's some protocols we have to follow to get there. We have to keep the Father's words in the way that he presented them, not what we think they are. We have to dig into them to find out where we are going astray with them. Because if we're not keeping all 10 of his words, and they're not hard to keep, we won't find ourselves in that place. We will continually find ourselves outside of that place of his protection. And it is, it's incredible. When I just look at my life and the way that he has, the way that protection has presented itself, has manifested itself in my life, and the reason it does is because part of the nature, the essence, the core nature of Yahovah is selflessness. Not self-denial, but selflessness, preferring the things of my brother as being of more importance and of more value than the things of my own. And as we that's not an easy place to attain.
No.
You know, it's more than just doing good. It's being in a place where you totally give yourself over to Yahovah your whole life.
Yeah, you say Jehovah's ultimate goal has always been to dwell within his people, Jeremiah 31:31 through 33, and to put his spirit within us. And when you embrace the life of Yeshua, you become the Mishkan,
Uh-huh.
uh, Yahovah. And now here's the interesting thing is you've got a comment from somebody, Tim Haig, looks like Haig, and in there he says, anything that soils it or makes it inappropriate for his presence must be jettisoned from our lives and repudiated as unbecoming a child of Yahovah, whose primary goal in life is to have an ongoing communication and friendship with the Creator.
Amen.
So that's ultimately
that is the primary goal.
That's the primary objective. That's the ultimate objective here. And I think a lot of times that gets forgotten. That,
well,
you know, there's all these things, you know, these to-dos or these words or these verses or these studies or these meetings and all that. And the primary objective, I think a lot of times just gets lost in it. And I think that's why so many people are so caught up in all the things that they think are taking them there, but they're not really.
That word Mishkan that you were speaking about, it comes out of John 2:13-21, when the Pharisees were questioning Yeshua, and he there's a difference in when you look into the Hebrew language, you find there's a difference between the temple of Yahovah, which was the structure itself. There's a difference between that and the sanctuary of Yahovah, which was the dwelling place of his presence. That's what is called the Holy of Holies, if you will. When Yeshua was accusing the Pharisaical authorities, he said, "You have made my father's house into a den of thieves." So by saying my father, they knew he was claiming messianic authority over this temple. And so they said, "What sign do you show us, seeing that you do these things?" In other words, they were not questioning that there was a messianic authority somewhere. What they were questioning is, how do we know that you're it? What sign do you show us? And Yeshua answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." And then the Pharisees said, "It's taken 46 years to build this temple, and you'll raise it up in 3 days." But see, he wasn't talking of the physical temple. He was speaking of the temple of his body.
Right.
And they were looking at the physical structure in Hebrew, which is mikdash, from Exodus 25:8 of the temple. But when he said destroy this temple, he used the Hebrew word mishkan, which was the word used in Exodus 40:34 to describe the place within the Holy of Holies where the glory of Yahovah's presence would manifest like a cloud on the mercy seat between the cherubim after the blood was sprinkled. That was the Mishkan. And Yeshua was saying, "I am the temple, Mishkan, of Yahovah." And that word, Mishkan, it's carried into the Greek. Even so much so that in 1 Corinthians 3:16, Paul said about the body of Yeshua, "Know you not that you are the temple, the Mishkan of Yahovah?" That blew me away, that it would be carried all the way through into the Greek that way. But that's what he's talking about. We become the glory of Yahovah. And it just supports everything that's been said up until this point. Am I going too far? Am I blowing you away? Have you nothing to say, my friend? No quip, no quote. No holly jolly, nothing? I agree with you. It is very sobering. It is very sobering to think that the creator of the universe would humble himself to abide in the flesh of men. That just completely blows me away.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to leave off.